State of OHS report details, amongst other things, the lack of a national OHS policy and strategy in the country. And it asks vital questions related to the fragmentation and complexities of existing legislation, which, although has been progressive, it excludes some sectors of employment, for example, the informal economy. This fragmentation unfortunately results in inefficient use of already limited resources. Therefore, the creation of a national policy, strategy, and framework is long-standing and something that we are pleased to be able to contribute towards actively as an institute. This opportunity lends itself to the creation of other new opportunities to inclusively examine aspects of OHS system in South Africa and shared quest to harmonize and consolidate OHS on the ground. Maybe if I take you back to the beginning of last year, during the pandemic, it was evident that the national OHS system was disjointed. And as we had noticed, through efforts from several governmental departments, and in particular, the Department of Employment and Labor and Department of Health and the NIOH, through the occupational health work stream and academia. Our efforts of coordination by strengthening these systems and integration into our development agenda in a very practical manner, we have been able to protect the health of the workforce proactively during outbreaks. So this is a quest from us to say, let us build on the work that we have done thus far and work together for this common goal. Over the years of our existence, the NIOH has played an essential role in supporting government's occupational health efforts. In the process, we have collaborated with significant number of key governmental entities and other workplace role players locally, nationally, and internationally. Our dedicated partnership and collaboration with the Department of Employment and Labor being one of the crucial ones. It is through fostering of these collaborations that we can fulfill our shared vision for the concept of decent work to ensure good occupational health and safety in all workplaces. And I just want to stress in all workplaces. The NIOH commits to continue, among others, to support all efforts, including surveillance and research, as well as building capacity for future generations of occupational health and safety professionals as part of its core mandate. So through setting of evidence-based priorities, finding the common ground, and working in a more inclusive and interdependent manner, there are excellent possibilities for more efficient functioning of enforcement, more efficient reporting, compensation, much greater prevention, and the reduction of the workplace contribution to the national burden of disease and injury. We can all do it, and each one of us can play a crucial role in this matter. I therefore now wish you all well and trust today's launch will stimulate much robust discussion and debate amongst those in attendance and the occupational fraternity at large. And in one spirit, let us all come together and seize this golden opportunity to work efficiently together to ensure the goal of decent work is attained for all workers in South Africa. I thank you all. Kia leboha.
Dr. Khalamona, thank you very, very much for that words of wisdom. We do appreciate your input into today's function, and thank you very much, ma'am. Now I'd like to present you Ms. Dedray Penfold. Ms. Dedray Penfold is from Kaya, the chemical industry, and she's also a director on the Business Unity South Africa. Ms. Penfold is also an active member on the Advisory Council and plays a very important role in leading business at the Advisory Council. We'd like to welcome her, and we give you the floor, Ms. Penfold. Thank you. Mr. Ratcliffe, if you could push up the presentation, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. While the presentation is coming up, we've reached 1,000 attendees online that have registered. The rest of the participants will then be in the overflow into the NIOH YouTube channel. So don't be surprised if you find yourself on the YouTube channel. Please, you may join us there as well. Ms. Penfold, over to you. Mr. Raycliffe, could you put up the presentation?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Deputy Minister, DG, Inspector General, all protocol observed. It is indeed an honor to represent business at this auspicious occasion of the launch of the much awaited OHS report. Maybe just to provide some, I'm speaking on behalf of BUSA today as a Director of Business Unity South Africa. I do hear that one of my colleagues from BBC is also online. But as the apex body, I just want to give you a little bit of history around what BUSA stands for and the importance of BUSA in the economy of South Africa. If we could go to the next slide, please. BUSA is an apex body which was formed in 2003, and it leverages on the role that organized business played in a peaceful transition to democracy. It's a confederation of business organizations, including chambers of commerce and industry, professional associations, corporate associations, and unisectoral organizations. As the principal representative of business in South Africa, BUSA represents the views of the members in a number of national structures and bodies, both statutory and non-statutory. BUSA also represents businesses' interest in the National Economic Development and Labour Council, NEDLAC. And certainly during last year, during COVID-19, we were also involved in B4SA, which was a structure created by the private sector to respond to the economic crisis, which was caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, and certainly has continued in the same vein during the course of this year. And just given the unfortunate events that we had about 2 weeks ago, certainly that whole body within NEDLAC has been looking at what needs to be done from an economic recovery plan, not only from COVID-19, but also following the recent incidents. So BUSA's function is to ensure that business plays a constructive role in the country's economic growth, development, and transformation, and to create an environment in which businesses of all sizes and in all sectors can thrive, expand, and be competitive. So today's proceedings are launched under the theme, A New Beginning. Although the report provides a useful and historical analysis of occupational health and safety in South Africa, it most importantly provides clear direction on how and where South Africa needs to start its new beginning in the context of improving the health and safety landscape for all workers. Business appreciates the guidance and support of the ILO as we reconsider the establishment of OHS systems and the development of an OHS profile for the country. We acknowledge that the OHS profile is the first stage in the process of policy development and a national OSH strategy as described in the ILO Convention 187, and welcome the intervention. There is no doubt that COVID-19 immediately brought occupational health and safety at workplaces to the fore. COVID-19 has made both workers and employers more aware of health and safety rights and obligations. It has further forced employers of all sizes and from all sectors to act quickly and decisively to keep workers safe. Employees have indeed responded positively to government directives, and in so doing have had to adapt new business processes and address existing structures that are insufficient for the purposes of ensuring that workers are safe at work. As devastating as the COVID-19 pandemic has been to lives and livelihoods, it has been a catalyst for employers and also presented opportunities for employers to significantly prioritize health and safety. Organized business firmly believes that if workers see their employers making progress on promoting safety and health, they will be motivated in their individual capacities to do more to ensure compliance. The best way to get workers to follow safe work procedures is to get them involved in the development and review of those procedures. If workers feel that their opinions are valued and considered, they are much more likely to follow the processes when they are being implemented. Business cannot emphasize enough how important communication and collaboration is for the purposes of health and safety. It is against this backdrop that business is pleased to note that the several recommendations contained in the State of the OHS report focus on matters which will ultimately see improvement of health and safety on the ground. Business broadly supports these recommendations, as well as the relentless efforts of the Department of Employment and Labour in relying on evidence-based solutions to ensure that as a country, we significantly improve the health and safety of our workers. It is important, as the Department of Employment and Labour embarks on work to implement some of the recommendations contained in the report, that the following factors are kept in mind. New OHS systems must be innovative. Reporting tools must be simple and efficient and serve the purpose for which they are intended. Input from social partners is key. The private sector is committed to finding mechanisms to drive compliance with legislation and regulations through partnerships with the key and relevant government departments. Business notes the concerns raised around poor compliance and hope that once developed, the National OHS policy and strategy will assist in the clarification of the fragmented and often complicated legislation. As organized business, we represent businesses of all sizes, including SMMEs. It is important for business that OHS legislation is easily understood by both employers and employees, and that it is practical in the sense that it can be implemented with ease to ensure that it achieves its purpose, which ultimately is to prevent accidents. Business considers the monitoring and enforcement of compliance, as well as holding organizations accountable to standards of compliance, critical in moving forward with regards to the implementation of effective national occupational health and safety policies. I hope that all participants present in this session will appreciate the valuable information which is contained in the State of the OHS report being launched today, and the significant amount of time taken to prepare the report. On behalf of organized business, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to all stakeholders who participated in and who contributed to the development of the report, with particular thanks to the ILO and the Department of Employment and Labour, who worked jointly on the preparation of the report, as well as to the Advisory Council for Occupational Health and Safety. Organized business encourages all stakeholders to share the information from the report launched today, far and wide, so that we may all promote and commit to safe, healthy, and decent workplaces. I thank you.
Ms. Penfold, thank you very much. We do appreciate the contribution and the support, the active support from the Business Unity South Africa component. Thank you very much, Ms. Penfold. I'd like to call forward Mr. Gregory Mofokeng, the CEO of the Black Business Council. Is Mr. Mofokeng online? Mr. Mofokeng? In the absence of a response, can I then...
Mr. Program Director, I think we've just made Mr. Gregory Mofokeng a speaker. Please proceed. I think he might have to open his microphone. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Ratcliffe.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mofokeng.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. And let me greet the Honorable Deputy Minister and all the dignitaries that are online, and also appreciate the invitation that we received from the department to say a few words this morning. Chair, from the Black Business Council, we are saying that the number of incidents experienced in the workplace remain unacceptably high. We remain concerned about the inspection capacity challenges that the department continuously faces. And of course, the various pieces of legislation that are coexisting so far is a concern. We definitely do need to see some consolidation. And of course, that the continued legislation fragmentation results in the duplication of efforts by various stakeholders and the resultant waste of financial resources. As Black business, we undertake to comply with the provisions of all the relevant legislation. And we want to work closely with government to expose and hold accountable companies that pay lip service to the health and safety measures. We also would like to continue to mobilize resources to undertake the much needed training and awareness of health and safety. We are doing quite a lot in this regard, Chair, and we are continuously mobilizing these resources, and we are hoping that all the stakeholders that are currently investing their resources in this respect will continue to do so until we can see a meaningful reduction of the incidents that we are currently experiencing in our workplaces. The expanded role of the private sector to self-regulate is one thing that we also want government to look at. We will be talking to you and the department, Chair, that the government must create an enabling environment for this to happen. We are of the view that this will increase the human capital available to undertake inspections to augment the current limited state capacity. I've already alluded to the issue of the consolidation of the various pieces of legislation, and this study that is being launched here today highlights this point, that we definitely do need consolidation as far as these various pieces of legislation are concerned. And our last contribution, Chair, is to look at the issue of the medical costs, which is a concern. And we want government as well as the private sector to look at how we can utilize the monies that are paid by the compensation fund through medical costs to transform the healthcare sector and to support the implementation of the national health insurance. In conclusion, Chair, Black business remains very supportive of all the measures to make sure that our workplaces are safe, and we will continue to be a stakeholder to the department and make sure that all the legislations that are highlighted here are consolidated, and we can have one regime that supports health and safety throughout our economy. Thank you very much, Chair.
Mr. Mofokeng, thank you very much for your support and also that of your organization. Mr. Mofokeng has one of the biggest smiles that you'll ever get to know. He hasn't shown it today. Mr. Mofokeng.
There you go, Chair.
We have a long-standing relationship with you, and a lot of work has been done between us in the construction sector, and we look forward to that ongoing relationship. And thank you for your contribution today, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to welcome Ms. Ajam from FEDUSA. She's the General Secretary. Ms. Ajam and I, over the last couple of months, have been interacting a bit closer with one another, and I'm hoping that going forward, there'll be great interaction between us and FEDUSA. I have been an active member on the Advisory Council over the last number of years, and I look forward to them being and playing a more meaningful role going forward on the Advisory Council. Ms. Ajam, over to you, ma'am. I believe you are online.
A very good morning to you, National Chief Inspector, Deputy Minister Malloy, ladies and gentlemen, members of the leadership of the federations, the leadership of BUSA, BBC, invited guests, and all protocols observed. The leadership of FEDUSA, first and foremostly, would want to extend their congratulations to you on the launch of this OHS report, and equally so the profile. This profile comes at a very welcoming prelude to the process of amendments to the existing OHS legislation, but equally so, Chief Inspector, a process that has been very long overdue, but most certainly welcomed by FEDUSA as an extremely progressive step in the right direction. Our approach as FEDUSA to occupational health and safety is derived from the legislation, from international best practice and the ILO conventions that binds us as social partners on the principles that employees have the right to health and safety working environments, employers have a duty to assure this, and equally so the effective management of risk and the assurance of a healthy and safe working environment is dependent at large by the collective inputs and the collective cooperation of not only organized business, government, and labor, but equally so the enterprises and and all collaborations in this instance. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, and program director, it was extremely difficult for FEDUSA to put our mouth on a leash when the global COVID-19 pandemic made landfall last year. The pandemic only exposed every single shortcoming in our workplaces and the inadequacies of the legislation that has left South Africa bruised and battered to the extent that federations and unions immediately intervened to assist our members when the provision of PPEs was simply absent. Although we were infuriated, to say the least, as our frontline members were left battled with their own fears while trying to save South Africa. But as we criticized government and business for their inefficiencies, we do believe that adversity has been changed to our advantage. Because surprisingly so, Program Director, new partnerships have emerged as oversight responsibilities became shared, and the role of the inspectorate, your department that you are overseeing, became increasingly critical. And for that, we want to thank you, especially so to Minister Nesi, DG Lamati, and all your provincial teams for the levels of cooperation that we have seen here. But equally so, as we express this appreciation, we have become tired. We've become tired and helpless of attending funerals of our family members who are working on the railway tracks, tired of listening to our members in emergency medical services who are being attacked while saving the lives of our community, and equally so tired of listening to our members who are working and having to resort to legal action when buildings are declared unsafe. And sadly so, these are your government buildings. And at the end of the day, we expected you to act without fear or favor as the custodial authority. But we believe that with this new profile that is launched here today, that helplessness that we felt at one stage will become a distant memory. So we believe, Program Director, that strength of conviction remains important, as this report promises to be. So we should not be left wanting, and we should no longer find us in adventurous ways and finding excuses to justify our shortcomings. We should unlearn this filthy habit of mistrust, the mistrust and the perception that profits are favored above people, where businesses continue to budget for fines to secure their margins. And we want to alleviate this misconception in all its facets. So, Program Director, I ask with tears in my eyes this morning why we have to look towards the north, the west, and even the east to demonstrate occupational health and safety in action. It is only through collective ownership that OHS becomes a non-negotiable, which entrenches mutual respect, mutual commitment, but most importantly, it entrenches a culture that insists on zero tolerance towards non-compliance and zero tolerance towards health and safety of not only the well-being of our members, but equally so to the well-being of employers and their property that we are engaged in on a daily basis. So the legacy that we want to leave behind as social partners must be used at the opportunity of the launch of this report, and a conviction that we believe to health and safety in every workspace here in Mzansi. We spoke eloquently, Chief Inspector, about a social compact that President Ramaphosa initiated during the hard lockdown. And as FEDUSA, we believe that we should reaffirm that commitment on the occasion of this launch, and we should use the process of inviting commentary on the amendment bill as the start of the reaffirmation to prioritize health and safety. And I want to acknowledge that whilst the bill proposes a number of progressive elements, including the future focus on gender-based violence, the informal economy, the role of the advisory committee, and something that is very welcoming, the addition of 500 new permanent inspectors, many other elements still require some further review. But FEDUSA remains fully committed to ensure that our members and our shop stewards equally uphold their responsibilities in the workplace. So as I conclude, Program Director, we believe that placing the blame at the foot of business and government is simply yesterday's hero. Our ability to change lies in our collective ability to act. So as George Bernard Shaw infamously said, Program Director, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. So Program Director, Deputy Minister Malloy, Chief Inspector Sazana, and the team championing this cause, it is our hope as FEDUSA that the critique we have leveled as part of our submission on the bill, in line with your deadline and coinciding with the launch of this report, will convince you to change your mind equally so we can make that progress. So when we learn to work together instead of against each other, things might start getting better. So the only time we as social partners should look back is ultimately to see just how far we have come. I thank you, Program Director.
Mr. John, thank you very much. As the GS of FEDUSA, your progressive outlook is much appreciated, and we do look forward to working with you going forward. And I do welcome the comments that you have made. Thank you very much, ma'am. I think, as you've correctly stated, today is the last day for comments. I have received quite a number of public comments to the bill so far. However, you only have today. After today, no further comments will be accepted or considered. With that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Solly Petwe, the Deputy General Secretary of COSATU, also an active member. Mr. Petwe does not hesitate to lift the phone up and call me or any of my colleagues to make it known where there are employees that are suffering at the workplace. Mr. Petwe is quite active in that regard, and I do welcome it, Mr. Petwe, and I do look forward to interacting with you going forward in future as well. But for now, Mr. Petwe, also an active, COSATU is an active member on the Advisory Council. I'd like to invite you to the floor, Mr. Petwe. The floor is yours. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks for the invitation. On behalf of COSATU, we want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the Deputy Minister, the officials of the Department of Labor, the International Labour Organization reps that are here, business, our friends, FEDUSA, NACTU, and business, and all the stakeholders that are invited in this launch. In welcoming the launch, Chair, these are the few words that as the Federation COSATU want to submit in this launch. Occupational health and safety or legislative and policy play a vital role in advancing and supporting employers to conduct the risk assessment and adopt the preventive measures, informing the workplace policy and action, monitoring the work environment, assessing and monitoring workers' health, and providing first aid services. They are thus well positioned to respond to the health threats in the workplace, as they are already well informed of the specific risk of workers in their sectors and any new risk that may emerge due to the crisis. In the context of COVID pandemic, occupational health and safety have as part of their role to monitor workers' health and provide first aid and emergency response, often been responsible for tracking confirmed and suspect cases and instructing workers to quarantine and notify the Public Health and Social Security Authority of their findings. As COSATU, with other trade union federation, as Labour, we participated together with other social partners at NEDLEC. We have participated in the development of the Occupational Health and Safety Direction on COVID-19. The direction is based on infection transmission and prevention and specific occupational hygiene practice that focus on the need for the employers to implement measures to mitigate or eliminate the transmission of the virus in the workplace. We would want to repeat what we said in the discussion, but also what the President of the Republic of South Africa and the Minister, Department of Employment and Labor, indicated that no workers would be dismissed for refusing to take a vaccine or to be vaccinated. And we are saying in this launch that it should be a responsibility of ourselves, trade union movement, including business, to encourage and mobilize and motivate workers for them to take a vaccine. When workers sell their labor, they do not sell their lives. However, often the risk on non-compliance with the health and safety measures is on employees. Employers still regard health and safety measures as costs on the employer, which must be paid for by the workers and their families. This practice and attitude of burdening families to take care of their breadwinners who are injured and who perish in the course of their work due to the employer's lack of health and safety measures must stop. When workers are killed during mining accident, fellow workers usually take a paid day of the mourn to mourn their lives of the perished comrade. This practice must be extended to all workers and all sectors. While some mining companies tolerate this practice, some have dismissed and given written warning to the workers for mourning their daily departed comrade. This is unacceptable and a violation of the right to the fair labor practice, the right to dignity, and to practice one culture. The Health and Safety Act must provide for the right of workers to take a day off for mourning if fellow workers dies on duty. As a result of employers or more interested in protecting the product and profit than to protect profit than the health and safety of the employers and than the safety of the employees. When employers fail to comply with the law, they usually resist compliance by appealing to the fines. The compensation claiming process is cumbersome, very long, and most workers are denied their right to compensation. The compensation fund has more than 500 millions of unclaimed money which belongs to the injured workers, and at the same time workers are living in poverty, and some workers resort to the SASSA for some income. The constrained budget given to the Department of Labor Deputy Minister restricted the mass training and release of health and safety inspectors into the virus sectors. As a result, health and safety rules are flouted due to the lack of policing. The limited presence of health and safety inspectors in the workplace has caused this problem to worsen with the daily consequences. The health and safety inspectors are not effective in monitoring and enforcing compliance with the health and safety policies and laws, and where there is enforcement, there is a resistance from the employers. As you know, Chair, including the Deputy Minister and the rest of the officials of the Department of Labor, we broadly agree with the research findings where it states there is a poor to almost to non-compliance with the health and safety legislation by employers. To promote and defend the right to healthy and safety working environment, the government must introduce laws and rules to address this rampant non-compliance by employers. By, among others, these are the following legislation that we require that need to be reviewed, must be considered, as we made a submission in the implementation of Cabinet Memo of 1999 on the integration of the Occupational Health and Safety Inspectorate and compensation. We said we require a single legislative authority and single Occupational Health and Safety Act and a single compensation authority. Review the Occupational Health and Safety Act for the election of the full-time health and safety reps. The legislation review on the penalties for non-compliance with health and safety policies and laws. Shop steward must be trained at the level of the inspectorate to be able to participate in the compliance monitoring and evaluation of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Workers must be entitled to a full day salary during the mining closure as directed by the Section 54 and 55 of the Mining Health and Safety Process. Employers must be criminalized or must be charged for death and injuries that are sustained by the workers in the works during during the course of work. Workplace health and safety agreement should be monitored, mandatory for all workplaces to have occupational health and safety policy aligned with the collective agreement signed workers representative union. The policy must include the election of full-time occupational health and safety representative. Workers must be allowed to refuse to work in an unhealthy safety place. The compensation fund needs to be strengthened its system to ensure that workers are taken care of and compensate accordingly and timely when they fall ill due to the COVID-19 are required to go into the self-isolation. We hope that all our views and inputs received during the research commission by the DLE, DLO, and ILO will find expression in final policy development and the national occupational strategy. Lastly, sometimes early in the year, we met with the Department of Labor and we agreed in a joint program to make sure that workers are informed about worker occupational health and safety, including the Compensation Act. Now, due to this budget, Deputy Minister, it shows that the program that we agreed with yourself with the officials in the Department of Labor may disrupted. Let me once more take this opportunity to thank you for inviting COSATU to this important launch, hoping that what we have submitted will find an expression in the amendment of the Act that deals with the lives of workers and at the workplace. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the rest of the participants, and thank you very much to the Deputy Minister.
Mr. Petwe, thank you very much. And I do appreciate it. You are definitely one of the people that I've met over the last 30 years who what you say is what you feel in your heart. And you have not hesitated to say when you are not happy with something. I think it speaks for itself that someone as high up in COSATU as you are, the Deputy General Secretary, for you to phone about workers that are suffering somewhere in South Africa speaks for itself. I wish more people would do so, because it would mean a lot of safer and healthier workplaces. Please continue to do so, Mr. Petwe, and thank you for attending today. The next speaker I'd like to introduce to you is Ms. Munkawa from the ILO. May I say, Ms. Munkawa, that the relationship that we've had since you have come online is absolutely refreshing. It is one of the more active relationships that I've experienced with the ILO. You are not someone to sit down and wait for something to happen, but you do make things happen, and you don't wait for anyone. I do appreciate it. It's very refreshing to work with you. And also, we are getting things done with regard to the things that we are planning. You also make sure that you push in that regard. And we are looking forward to post this particular event to developing and finalizing the strategy that the draft that we have already put in place, that we'll finalize that. Ms. Munkawa, we do realize if you do have a problem from where you are, that Mr. Simpiwe will take over from you, Mr. Simpiwe Mbele, and we do welcome you to the floor on behalf of the ILO, Ms. Munkawa.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies. I confirm, yes, I'm experiencing some challenges from wherever I am. I'm speaking from Lusaka. And now I'll have to switch off my camera just to capitalize on the quality of the connectivity. My apologies for that. Honorable Deputy Minister, Ms. Boitumelo Moloi, Director General of Employment and Labor, Mr. Toby Denamati, Inspector General, Ms. Aji Moira, the Compensation Commissioner, Mr. Vuyo Mafata, Executive Director for NAIO, Dr. Spo Kalamono, the CEO of BBCBE, Mr. Mofokeng, esteemed representatives of BUSA, esteemed representative of COSATU, esteemed representative of FEDUSA, esteemed representative of NACTU, Program Director, Mr. Tibotsana, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say all protocols observed. It's such a great honor to be afforded this opportunity on behalf of ILO to witness the launch of South Africa report on state of OHS under the theme, A New Beginning. Director of Ceremony, let me give a background on the notion of occupational safety and health profile, as ILO call it, or state of OHS as fondly and uniquely titled in South Africa. The 91st session of the International Labour Conference held in June 2003 noted the increase of the work-related injuries and diseases and prompted the development of an application of responsive strategies and solutions for well-known as well as the emerging hazards, risks, and issues such as biological hazards, psychosocial hazards, and musculoskeletal disorders. The session further recognized the need to take cognizance of effects of the demographic factors and dynamics, employment shifts and work organization changes, gender differentiation, the size, structure, and life cycle of the enterprises, the fast pace of technology progress as key issues that can generate new types of patterns of hazards, exposures, and risks. The ILO then committed to devise technical assistance and cooperation in the area of occupational safety and health to provide technical advisory and financial support to countries for the timely strengthening of their national OSH capacities and programs. Director of Ceremony, the purpose of OSH profile or the state of OHS. The ILO identified the preparation of national OHS profiles as a step in the process of building a good national OHS program. Inspired by and modeled against the provisions of Convention number 187, which is the promotional framework for occupational safety and health of 2006, the elaboration of the national OHS profile provides for the following: basic data on all the parameters that might affect the sound management of OHS at both national and enterprise levels, such as legislative framework, enforcement mechanism and infrastructures, human and financial resources for OHS, scope of protection, and other key aspects, and subsequently identify current strength and weakness to guide the setting of the national priorities for action. It also provides for practical information on ongoing activities and provide an improved understanding of the potential problems and critical analysis of the activities being undertaken within the country. It also provides for better understanding of the stakeholders' capacities, resources, and activities, as well as constraints for realistic setting of priorities for policy and programs. The OHS Profile Director of Ceremony provide a common view of the most important issues and means of improved coordination and convergence of points of view and of facilitating communication between all parties interested in OHS. The basis for initiating a process for identification of gaps and opportunities for improvement in existing institutional and administrative as well as technical infrastructure in relation to OHS systems. Last but not least, the OHS profile provides for identification of the baselines and indicators through which performance, progress, and impact can be traced and monitored following the implementation of the national OHS programs and strategies. We are launching rather the state of OHS in South Africa under the theme, A New Beginning. A new beginning for South Africa. Director of Ceremony, the elaboration of the national OHS profile or status of OHS for South Africa coincided with the very important milestones in the evolution of the OHS functions, such as the emergence of COVID-19 pandemic and the adoption of the Convention 190. The very inclusive and thorough process of the compilation of this report paid special attention to the occupational safety and health of workers in informal economy, capacity for effective emergency preparedness and response, as well as the elaboration of gender-responsive OHS measures and strategies. It is evident from the findings and the recommendation of the report that the new beginning and the journey ahead demands new approaches to solutions, and most importantly, the new alliances through interagency cooperation and collaboration. Director of Ceremonies, the ILO encourages South Africa to publish the State of OHS report and use it as a promotional document to inform the public on the national situation on occupational health and safety in order to raise awareness, support on the national initiatives, and to achieve the sustainable OHS results. Our commitment as ILO Director of Ceremony, we recognize that the National OHS Profile plays an essential role in realization of the ILO commitment to devising the technical assistance and cooperation in the area of OHS, and to provide support to countries for timely strengthening of the national OHS capacities and programs. Therefore, in accordance with such commitment, the ILO looks forward to working with the Department of Employment and Labor, social partners and stakeholders in translating the South Africa State of OHS into a time-bound OHS strategy to address the prioritized gaps and challenges. In conclusion, Director of Ceremony, the ILO wish to appreciate the dedication and cooperation displayed by the Department for Employment and Labor, the partners, stakeholders, and the key informants during the compilation of this report, and reaffirm its commitment to supporting the meaningful utilization of the findings and facilitate the application of relevant ILO standards. With those words, Director of Ceremony, I thank everybody for the kind attention.
Ms. Munkawa, thank you very much. And I'm very, very grateful that we didn't lose the link with you. We do appreciate your input and the input of the ILO. We do indeed look forward to a long relationship with you, and also to the benefit of South Africa, that we'll be able to align ourselves in such a way that we obviously will do so to the benefit of the workers. We thank you, and we obviously will look forward to working further with you in due course. Thank you very much, Ms. Munkawa. I'd like to invite the Commissioner, Mr. Vuyo Mafata, to the floor. Mr. Mafata, or the Commissioner, if you like, the Compensation Commissioner, has played an active role in making sure that occupational health and safety is well resourced, and in so doing, obviously, to the benefit of the workers. Mr. Mafata is no stranger to health and safety, and when support is required, Mr. Mafata is the first to stand in line to make sure that we are receiving that kind of support. Of course, he's not also shy to indicate that the inspectors need to deliver as is required, obviously to the benefit of the workers again. Mr. Mafata, I'd like to invite you to take over then. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Deputy Minister, Mebwi Tumelo Moloi, the DG of Employment and Labour, Ntate Tobile Lamati, the Inspector General, Memula, and the Chief Inspector, who's also the Program Director, the social partners who are here, also part of us in the panel and also in the attendees. And also, let me recognize also all the stakeholders that are here at in the session today. Certainly, the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases and the Occupational Health and Safety Act are two sides of the same coin. And I must also express my appreciation and gratitude to the Executive Committee of the Department of Employment and Labor that saw it in their wisdom to work towards fostering good working relations between the Occupational Health and Safety Inspectorate as well as the Compensation Fund, such that we're sitting now with a better resourced Occupational Health and Safety Inspectorate and the inspection and enforcement in general. So thank you very much for that. While we recognize the importance of the compensation fund in providing the social safety net in an event that workers are injured in the workplace, the priority still remains the prevention of occupational injuries and diseases in the workplace. And it is because of that reason that we sought to partner with the inspection and enforcement services in the department to make sure that we make this a reality. Our objective is to make sure that no skills are lost in the economy. We have seen that when you look at the profile of those that claim from the compensation fund, you realize the fact that these are people that could still be economically active and that could still contribute to the economy of Africa. And while we have made strides in the introduction of rehabilitation and return to work policies in the fund, and also with the COIRA amendment that are currently in Parliament, we're creating a more comprehensive return to work framework. We still want to place priority towards the prevention of occupational injuries and diseases, because we want as a first prize to make sure that we prevent these occupational injuries from taking place. So the State of OHS report is quite an important milestone in this partnership. And we know that through some of these reports, it should then be able to help guide our work as the compensation fund in collaborating with with the Occupational Health and Safety Inspectorate. We have seen good collaboration work. Some of the work that we've seen over the period of the pandemic, the number of directives that have been issued on both fronts, we have seen a good working relationship. Quite grateful to the ILO that has also walked the journey with us, both the Compensation Fund and the OHS Inspectorate, towards making sure that we shape our work with regard to the changing landscape of the workplace, with more people working from home as a result of the pandemic. And we have no doubt that this partnership will continue to yield the much desired results, and we shall move towards a fatality-free workplace and reduce as much as possible serious disablement that are caused by occupational injuries and diseases. So thank you very much, Program Director. I will end my contribution here.
Commissioner, thank you very much. Your support and also your commitment to health and safety is much appreciated, but not only to the program of health and safety, but to the workers of South Africa. Over the last several years that I had the pleasure of working with you, I have never seen as such a big movement that has taken place since you have been Commissioner, and obviously with our DG and our Inspector General in place. The three parties have definitely made it possible, obviously through the Minister's office, but we do thank you for the role that you have played in making sure that workers do have a safer and healthier workplace. Thank you for that, Commissioner. I'd like to invite you now to listen to my boss, Ms. Aggie Moilwa, who is standing in the place of the Director General, Mr. Tobile Lamati. The Inspector General and I have been working together now for some time, and under her leadership, we have seen quite a bit of changes taking place in health and safety. And for that, I'd like to thank her for providing the leadership that she does and for ensuring that she prioritizes health and safety in South Africa. Thank you very much, Ms. Moilwa. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you once again, Program Director. And all protocol observed once again. This launch isn't a signal of an arrival, but an indication of the daunting work ahead of us, as so many of the speakers prior to myself have indicated. It isn't a destination, but an expedition. We have crossed an important milestone in our 100-year history in the OHS space. As an organization, we've had 4 acts in this time. Over the past year, we have grown as the Occupational Health and Safety family by adding 500 new permanent inspectors. We can never overemphasize the importance of this addition, and we owe it to the partnership between the Inspectorate and the Compensation Fund, as articulated earlier on just now by the Commissioner. We are in the process of working with the ILO on a 10-year strategy for OHS. And I think Ms. Munkawa also alluded to this. Our priorities in OHS changes entirely from being focused on the formal sector, where we provided leadership in regard to self-regulation. However, this focused more on the safety aspect. We'll now move in the direction of a new paradigm that looks at the developing occupational health in relation to policies and provide the kind of structure that will ensure increased protection of vulnerable workers. This will not reduce the focus on the formal sector. Rather, we will refine the way we have been working with the formal sector. In the Decent Country Work Program, we have committed ourselves to changing the way our policies deal with the issues of women, the issues of children, and the disabled in relation to health and safety. We will also change the way we have viewed and dealt with the informal sector. We know the challenges there are great, but they're not insurmountable. Post-COVID-19, we have already moved to changing our policies. We agree that there is a weakness in our policies here and there. And we also recognize the fact that the work environment is forever evolving. So we never come to a point where policies are going to be static. In this regard, we are working with the compensation fund, as indicated earlier, to finalize policies that effectively deal with the issues of working from home. We've got to admit that there are gaps in that space. As we're sitting right now, program director, most of us are working from home. However, the working from home concept, as it relates to a policy intervention, still remains to be fine-tuned. This will ensure that we provide the type of leadership required for this new paradigm that has cast a shadow over the traditional working model. Two key aspects will further guide us as we move forward. On the one hand, we have the need to build stronger partnerships with organized labor and business, while on the other hand, we are also busy working at the moment on providing you with key information to manage health and safety, both at a macro level within your sectors and industries, and also at a micro level within your own organizations. At a macro level, this could benefit you in relation to the compensation fund rebates, while at a micro level, it benefits all parties as healthy and safe work delivers quality and productivity. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is supported by empirical research. This report is the first of its kind, as we've already indicated, on the whole for our country, and it comes with recommendations which we would benefit greatly from applying within our environments. This report will be produced every 3 years, and we hope that you will join us on this journey as we seek to improve the plight of all men and women in the world of play or in the world of work. I thank you, Program Director. Back to you.
IG, as we refer to you commonly as opposed to Inspector General, thank you very much for your input and the role that you have played in changing health and safety over the last several years. And we do indeed look forward to your further leadership on this matter. Thank you very much, ma'am. I'd like to invite to the fore now the Deputy Minister, the Honourable Boitumelo Moloi. May I add, the Deputy Minister has definitely played an important role in the Department of Employment and Labour since she and the Minister have come in. If I say to you that the protection of workers in all its forms, in terms of all the legislation that we are responsible for, it is no easy task, and the DM, the Deputy Minister that is, plays an important role in ensuring that we do the work that we are required to do. So the oversight from the Minister's office and the Deputy Minister's office is there, and there is no playing around with regard to the work that we do, and the fact that we are able to do the things that we are doing is in no small feat due to the leadership provided by the Minister and the Deputy Minister. And we do indeed look forward to the presentation of the Deputy Minister. Deputy Minister, over to you. The floor is yours, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, our program director or moderator, Ndate Tibozana, our chief inspector. Allow me also to put an apology of the minister for not being able to be part of this important session because he was burying his aunt yesterday, so he's unable to join us today. You know, our tradition doesn't allow us certain things, so apologies in advance, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me also to acknowledge Ms. Egi Muilwa, who is standing in for our Inspector General, but also standing in for our DG, Mr. Tobile Lamati, our senior officials of the department in the inspections and enforcement services and the Department of Employment and Labor in general. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me also to acknowledge the presence of our network social partners, the business component, represented by Busa. We were addressed by Ms. Penfold, and Black Business Management, Black Business Council, represented by Ndade Mofokeng. Allow me to acknowledge the Secretary General of FEDUSA, Mayor Ajam. We work well with them, and they work well with us. We fight a lot. Allow me to acknowledge the presence of Ndade's comrade Soli Petwe, the Deputy Secretary General of COSATU. I think we have heard you, Ndade Petwe, the National Institute of Occupational Health, and represented by Dr. Khalamono, and the ILO among us, represented by Mayor Munkawe. I hope Munkawa, I hope I pronounce you well, from Zambia. Our greetings to your fellow Zambians. We know that you are still in mourning the departure of one of the great statesmen, His Excellency Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, whom the municipality I was the mayor for 10 years was named after. Thank you so much. And I think at this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, we need to acknowledge the fact that this report that is being presented today, which is launched today, it was jointly commissioned by our Department of Employment and Labor, and including the ILO itself. So the bulk, both we were in a joint venture together with the ILO. So I need to put that actually so that you know. And allow me to acknowledge Mr. Vuyo Mafata, our Compensation Fund Commissioner. Ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all, and I must say upfront that I am honored actually to stand in for the Minister of our Department, Employment and Labor, to attend this very important event and session. And as a Department of Employment and Labor, ladies and gentlemen, and as a wider workplace community, we must never lose sight of this key mandate to constantly strive to strengthen occupational health and safety in order to effect greater protection of the worker. So this launch of this report, and I think themed the profile of occupational health and safety in South Africa, marks a milestone in the history of occupational health and safety efforts in our country's history. And in these words of the theme of today, actually, a new beginning, but of course, build on a firm foundation of decades of legislation, regulation, investigation, and enforcement. And the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic last year in 2020, ladies and gentlemen, reminded us of the critical importance of the need for the health and safety protocols and measures in the workplace. And as we know that some 70,000 fellow South Africans have tragically succumbed to the pandemic itself. And I think that this is a reported figure. The total number of deaths is much larger. We might know where we come from, that there might be other people who might have actually perished due to this pandemic, but who might not necessarily form part of the statistics themselves. But millions, those millions who were infected, and thankfully the vast majority recovered. Myself and our Minister Nlesi of the Department of Employment and Labor, we are part of this recovered majority. Because we were part of those infected and we survived, and we thank God for that. It is significant, ladies and gentlemen, that the infection rates and the spread of the disease were lower in the workplaces than across the communities. And this is according to statistics compiled by the Compensation Fund, obviously. And this was in no small part due to the efforts of our inspectors that we normally don't actually acknowledge. And assisting the social partners in NETLEC to draft COVID-19 health and safety directions. And by the way, I must also say that the occupational health and safety is about partnership. Involving government, all necessary, or stakeholders, business and labor in particular. So, Comrade Petwe, be rest assured that every input received will be looked into and considered, and where necessary, feedback will be provided. So, I hope that you don't despair in this journey, because we are in a partnership. So the inspectors also continue to visit and inspect workplaces, enforcing and advocating for the new regulations, and I think you might also want to know, or you might know, that our Department of Employment and Labor recently recruited and trained 500 new health and safety inspectors, which was deemed a major reinforcement in the war against COVID-19 in the workplace. And let us also not forget that our own inspectors, ladies and gentlemen, were on the front line of combating and battling this COVID-19 in the workplaces. And they themselves were not immune to infection. And worst of all, I think you might be aware that we have lost some of our inspectors due to the pandemic itself. So I think the inspectors need to be acknowledged more and appreciated for their work during these very difficult times, because they are there and they are affected, and we have to talk more about them, despite the fact that we have a shortcoming in terms of the numbers of our inspectors vis-a-vis the employers themselves that needs to be inspected. And I think it brings us back to the fact that we are in a partnership. It cannot be expected to be only from ourselves, but all other partners must also play their role. And I'm aware that the Inspection and Enforcement Services branch is continuing its efforts to expand the reach and effectiveness of the inspectorate and drawing on technology to achieve this in this age of Internet of Things, the IoT. And turning to the report itself, ladies and gentlemen, I think we must start by recognizing the many institutions and professional bodies who engaged and contributed to this report. And the list is very exhaustive, but I must also indicate and mention this in particular, that who participated in drafting this report. The African Union Development Agency, New Partnership for Africa's Development, our Department of Employment and Labor, the Department of Health, with a specific reference to Medical Bureau for Occupational Diseases and Compensation, Commissioner for Occupational Diseases, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, the ILO, our International Labour Organization, the National Institute for Occupational Health, South African Bureau of Standards, the South African Maritime Safety Authority, South African National Accreditation System, South African Police Services, especially the Explosive Division. And in terms of professional bodies, which are included in this report, who participated, the Employee Assistant Professional Association of South Africa, Economics Society of South Africa, Health Professional Council of South Africa, Institute of Working at Height, Mine Medical Professionals Associations, Southern Africa Institute for Occupational Hygiene, South African Institute of Occupational Health and Safety, South African Society of Occupational Health Nursing Practitioners, South African Society of Occupational Medicine, South African Qualification and Certification Committee on Fire, and the South African Qualification and Certification Committee on Gas. So I must say, ladies and gentlemen, that this report draws on a wealth of relevant experience and expertise working with institutions and bodies which are active in the field of OHS. I've been browsing through the chat and comments There's some comments from Ketlogonolo Paulina, who wrote on the chat about having to involve other departments, and I think we are taking a note of such. But safe to say that South Africa has a long history of more than 100 years on occupational safety and health legislation, which evolved from the mining industry and resulted in the different pieces of legislation under the 3 departments. And the challenges brought by this situation prompted the setting up of commissions of inquiry into OHS related legislation and regulations. And it is worth noting, ladies and gentlemen, that prior to 1994, the hallmark of OHS compensation benefits was race-based, racially based. I'm sure you know the history, and we dare not go back there. So the Cabinet Memorandum of 1999 gave the Department of Labor then, before we changed to Employment and Labor, as it is now known, and as is a new name, we were given a mandate to lead a process of integration of OHS legislation, which set the stage for the development of the draft OHS policy in 2003. And unfortunately, I must upfront confess that most of the commissions and committee recommendations were not necessarily implemented or partly implemented. Some of those, or to a certain extent, as expected, we didn't reach what we were initially mandated to do. I need to put that on record. And consequently, South Africa remains with legislation on OHS under several different state departments. And as a member of the International Labour Organization, South Africa has an obligation to develop a national occupational health and safety policy and strategy. And it is against this background that the Department of Employment and Labor, ladies and gentlemen, initiated the process of developing an OHS profile for South Africa. And the ILO Convention 187 is of particular importance for this process because it provides guidance on the establishment of the OHS and the methodology that was followed in developing this OHS profile is twofold, among others, a literature review and primary data collection. The analysis of qualitative data pointed to the following. Among others, legislation, although progressive, is fragmented. We acknowledge that, complicated, and it generally excludes the informal economy to a certain extent. And domestic workers get excluded most of the time when we deal with these legislations. And fragmentation results in inefficiencies, which used to inefficiency use of limited resources. So we are unable to reach our mandate most of the time because of these deficiencies. So legislation is viewed as punitive, and government's role in OHS is compromised in that government departments are significant defaulters and are often non-compliant with legislation. So government departments that regulates OHS work in necessarily, we work in silos most of the time with little coordination and collaboration. So it's like I'm confessing our sins as government. So the level of awareness also on OHS and reporting was viewed to be poor among government employees, and there is a general lack of reporting of work-related injuries and diseases in the public sector. And work-related injuries and diseases data collection and reporting is fragmented and not harmonized among and within the different departments. And there is no uniform way of recording and reporting injuries and diseases. And therefore, there is no clear picture of the burden of the OHS injuries and diseases, especially diseases sometimes they don't get recorded. Enforcement of legislation is perceived as a challenge with poor compliance by employers and serious limitations with human resource capacity for inspections. And enforcement is generally reactive in that inspectors tend to react to complaints and incident investigations. And suggestions by participants included that the processes of reviewing legislation should be fast-tracked, and that the South African Local Government Association, SALGA, should also provide basic facilities for informal economy workers to promote occupational health and safety. I'm sure you will understand what I'm talking about in terms of those small businesses that are congested wherever they are in small towns, in the taxi rank and stuff like that. I think we need to collaborate more with SALGA to formalize this informal sector. And findings from quantitative data point to good efforts in inspections by the Department of Employment and Labor with little human resource. So we are trying to do more with the little that we have currently. And in 2019, over 28,000 inspections were conducted with less than 300 inspectors at the time, and recently created posts increased the number of inspectors to 778, of which 533 were currently filled. So the inspector to employee ratio will be 1 inspector to 17,600 employees, which is provided all our posts are filled on time. And I'm sure we know that in terms of the standards, the ILO standards, we are far from reaching that compliant position that we are supposed to be. So inspections show very poor compliance by the wholesale and retail sector and the iron and steel sector. So the wholesale and retail sector also has a high number of claims registered with the compensation fund. And the monetary value of the claims of the compensation fund has been rising over recent years, with medical costs amounting to 66%, from 66% to 71% of the claims themselves. So there is no national occupational health and safety policy and strategy. The acts that are under review include the Quiet Amendment Bill and Occupational Health and Safety Amendment Bill. So the ILO Committee of Experts on the Application of Conventions and Recommendations and the stakeholders have noted the long time it takes to amend legislation in South Africa, actually. So we need to prioritize and fast track the process of reviewing this legislation. So we will need to engage Parliament to begin to shorten the period that we take to review legislation. So the report concludes with a series of practical recommendations designed to develop an integrated and joined up occupational health and safety system across the government and the world of work. So the recommendations are based on the findings of this project, and most have been raised by the commissions of inquiry on occupational health and safety and related legislation. So the main recommendations are to develop a national policy on occupational safety and health, develop a national occupational safety and health strategy, revive, contextualize, and implement the Cabinet Memorandum 1 of 1999 towards the integration of occupational health and safety competencies, and fast track the process of merging of legislation in line with the findings of this project and also in line with the previous commission's findings. Prioritize and fast track the process of reviewing legislation currently underway and implement articles of the ILO conventions when reviewing legislation. So among others, in terms of the recommendations also, to strengthen the relationship between the preventative and compensation legislation, develop a harmonized and integrated data collection system on occupational injuries and diseases that will inform national policy and strategy on occupational health and safety, consider the role of South African Local Government Association in occupational health and safety, especially as it relates to the informal economy. That's what I've alluded to earlier on, and leverage on existing tripartite structures such as NATLEC, OHS, and MHSC, SC, and professional bodies and practitioners. Investigate the medical costs to the compensation fund, and the cabinet should be informed of the findings of this project, especially as it relates to government departments being some of the significant non-compliant institutions to sensitize ministers on this issue of grave concern. capitalize on the opportunities brought by COVID-19 to advocate for and instill an OHS culture across all sectors and all departments, develop collaboration mechanisms with institutions of learning to address development of human resources for occupational health and safety, and the competent authorities to inform curriculum development to be responsive and relevant to occupational health and safety issues that we currently face. And the report here set an ambitious agenda for the occupational health and safety community in seeking to move towards a more integrated, stronger and joined up occupational health and safety system. So South Africa has a comprehensive legal framework that has developed over the years. And however, the legislation is fairly complex and fragmented. We mentioned that earlier on, with the main legislation falling under several government departments and other regulatory agencies. And this is a limited collaboration amongst authorities that administer and enforce occupational health and safety legislation. And this results in duplication of efforts, contradictory legislation, and inefficient use of limited resources. So I think we are agreeing and accepting as government that we need to do things differently. We should get out of convention, Convention is doing things the way they've been done over the years. So if we can think outside of the box and begin to do things differently, maybe we'll find each other sooner rather than later. But in addition, ladies and gentlemen, and in conclusion, the data collection systems do not allow for proper use of information to provide a view of the true picture of the burden and the cost of injuries and diseases. So the emphasis now is more than ever on the implementation of these recommendations that I've alluded to earlier on. And I wish the inspectorate well in their endeavors, among others, working with all relevant stakeholders, departments, and social partners. There might be some stakeholders somewhere that we might have excluded. I think we have to look into and make sure that everybody is part of the process itself. We shouldn't leave anybody outside of the processes. And a draft OHS strategy has been developed and will be undergoing a process before finalization in conjunction with the ILO. And I think you will be kept abreast of developments in this regard, ladies and gentlemen. This report is hereby launched officially and will be made available electronically after 11:30 immediately, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you, Program Director, and ladies and gentlemen, for your audience. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for your words. We do appreciate your support and also your leadership in this regard. And one of the notes from one of the inspectors is that they appreciated the recognition that you have given them as well. Without much ado from my side, Dean, thank you. And thank you for launching the document. It will be made available online. We will put a link on the Department of Employment and Labour's website to make it easy for you to access. With that, I'd like to hand over the vote of thanks to the director or the senior specialist, Ms. Bulelwa Huna, who is responsible for occupational health and hygiene, a colleague with whom I've now worked for a couple of years, and a person who has a passion for the people and ensuring that occupational health reaches to all facets of employment within our country. Ms. Huna, over to you. Thank you. Please unmute, Ms. Huna. Ms. Huna, unmute, please. No, you're not audible yet. No, not yet. You're not audible.
Am I audible now?
You're audible, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Program Director, and sorry for the interruption. Greetings to our Deputy Minister, and thanks for gracing the occasion. And greetings to the DG, our Inspector General, our Compensation Commissioner, the ILO, the NOH, our social partners, representatives from academia and professional bodies, as well as all our participants and our esteemed inspectors. As the department would like to express our gratitude to all our stakeholders as they have walked the journey with us and made this day possible. This is a very important day for the Department of Employment and Labor. A special thanks to the ILO as they have been working and are still working the journey with us and holding us by the hand, looking to the needs of all men and women in the working environment, in all workplaces. All our stakeholders have been a significant part of the journey, and we cannot imagine the future of OHS without you heroes working with us. As we charter new grounds through this profile, we'll keep you abreast of all the developments as the Deputy Minister has indicated, and we'll ensure that we'll continue to engage through the relevant structures and all relevant organizations, and will not leave anyone behind. It would be remiss of me not to appreciate and thank our foot soldiers who through their work bring to life our policies and who have also made the time to grace this occasion. We thank you, our foot soldiers. Lastly, thanks to Dr. Halamono and her team who have provided us with technical support to ensure that this day is a support. I thank you. Over to you, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Ms. Yuna. With that, all the thanks have been done. We do appreciate your attendance, and we will definitely try and make it easy for you to access the document on the Department of Employment and Labor's website. With that, thank you. We conclude the session. Thank you very much.
you.